Okay, this is deck 1. I have the Knight of Cups, the Three of Swords, and Death. What these cards show me is that your man wants to bring you love on the wing of a prayer. I can see that he flies around quite a bit. He might be an international or domestic traveller. But it shows that he has to face facts. And the truth of the situation is that he's heartbroken. And the challenge with your relationship is that he wants to walk away now. He wants to end your love affair. And the reason that he wants to end your love affair is because he can't deal with the heartbreak anymore. It's too much. And I can see there that he's been full of blind jealousy. And the jealousy in his heart has caused this ending. Because he hasn't been very realistic about the pair of you. I can see that he's a very powerful fellow, because there's the king here in the depiction. But it's almost as if he was the king. But the king is now inside of him, to use this as an analogy, is now dead. And that to me shows that something about you has brought this man back down to earth. You know, because he looks upon his cup in a considered way. You know, he's a little bit contemplative about the cup that he has in his hand. And he knows that he has to bring it to you and that you are his true love. Or you are his love. But the situation is that he's in a third party situation. And that is also ending. Because you can see that he's just getting on his horse and riding away from this thunderstorm. And he's even riding away from the relationship now. But I feel it will lead to some kind of rebirth. Because his love is quite stable. He is the Knight of Cups. So he's not fully evolved, but there's something in him that is older emotionally. But he feels very vulnerable with you. Extremely vulnerable. To the point where, you know, the tears could stream down his face if he feels that you have hurt him in some way. But the problem is that there's a side to him that tries to protect him from that hurt. And I think the way that he tries to protect himself from that hurt is by shutting you off. despite what I'm saying, this is progress for you, for your relationship, or for your connection, because there is a third party in it. You know, it's almost as if he's saying to himself that you are unfaithful to him. But the reality is that he's the one in the third party situation. You are independent of his pairing at the moment. So it's not as if you can take the blame for what's happening. But the problem is that something in him is morbid. You know, and to me it shows somebody that's been deeply hurt in their life. So whenever a person tries to grow a relationship with him, he always has a tendency to nullify that growth and that renewal and that rebirth in love. So it shows me that the truth is that he has genuine love feelings for you. But that trying to move forward in a positive way, in a balanced way, in a way which creates equilibrium between his head and his heart, is extremely difficult. So that's why he just cuts you off. You know, but you can see him there extremely upset. And I'm laughing because he's being silly. You know, he really gets himself into a pickle over you both. I mean, I can see how the clouds just descend on your man, and he's almost, you know, crying, you know, standing there just dripping tears sometimes, because he has so much love, so much genuine love for you. But he's not expressing it in the right way. It's you know, he wants to be the knight in shining armor for you. And maybe this is a guy that has faced death. If he's a little bit older, maybe he has had health issues. And if he's a little bit younger, then something's happened in his environment which has, where he's seen, where he's dealt with grief. That's the impression I'm getting, because I can't stand looking at these cards and seeing the genuineness in this person in terms of his love emotions, because you can see that he has a deep, very deep love for you that he's not expressing correctly. You know, so maybe it's a psychological thing. and you have to be gentle with him. But what I'm saying at the moment is that he's at a stage at the moment where he's going through one of his episodes. So he's just going to completely shut you out for a time. And that's the truth. Because he can't deal with it. It's almost like he gets too close to the flame and he doesn't want to get burnt. So he just throws everything to the wall. That's the impression I'm getting. So I guess, this could be a very frustrating situation for you because you don't want to be left in a confusing situation, but also you don't want to be left with your own emotions and not quite understanding why it is you've got these reciprocated emotions, but they're not being dealt with. And what I'm saying is that it's a psychology in him. And maybe if you progress this relationship, it might get to the point where even in a relationship, you may still have these problems. But if you understand that and if you're willing to face it, then my suggestion is that you be gentle about how you approach this man, because he will have a tendency to set and reject. Like he can love upon you so much in his own way. And it's a bit uncertain how he shows himself to you. Because there's different relationships, obviously, between people. There's a conversational type, a direct relationship where you see one another every day and you're talking and you feel that you understand this person that you are engaged with. And then there are other relationships where you feel something very deeply for a person, but it hasn't been developed yet in a real sense. So I guess, which is kind of like a soul connection. So if you are in the position where you see this person every day face to face and it's confusing you, this is where the confusion lies. If you don't see this person at all, I can confirm with you that he does have genuine feelings for you, but he's at a stage at the moment where he's just cutting everything out of his life. Because he doesn't want to keep facing this hurt. He knows how he needs to handle potential hurt in a relationship, and his way of handling potential hurt is by cutting people off. And that's my warning in this reading. But if there's a possibility that you can see this person face to face and every day, and there's a possibility that you can develop things from your side, what I'm saying is it will take a gentle approach. It will take a very considered approach, because it's too much for him to handle emotional relationships, to be quite frank. He can love very genuinely and very openly, but he can also knows how to protect himself, but his protection of himself is too harsh. It's very harsh, because he knows that whatever's happened in his past has affected him, and he can't deal with it like others might be able to. So he just shuts people out. So that's my warning in this reading. even to the point where you can see he has his own relationships. You can see he dates other women. You can see he's even in another relationship. Could be quite possibly in another relationship with someone else. So who is he to tell you that you are the hurtful one? You're not the hurtful one. You're making the best of a difficult situation. You're trying to love him the best way you can. He's the hurtful one because he's out there seeing other women and flouting, sort of flaunting that flouting your love first of all, but flaunting that in front of you in some capacity. But what I'm saying is his psychological makeup is one-sided. It's saying that if he feels you have hurt him in some way, then he will take that on board very seriously and he'll shut you out. But what I'm saying is that I don't think you need to be worried about that, because you are, first of all, you're independent of him and you have your own life. Second of all, you haven't hurt him, you have loved him. So his perception is not your problem. But I think it's best to take a gentle approach. So I'll just look into this a little further. So the lady that I see has darker hair that's in his life at the moment. So that might relate to some of you that are listening. But also it's quite possible that this is a man as well that you're competing against. So I don't know whether he sees both men and women, but that's a possibility if you didn't know that. So, maybe you've got quite a few contenders, but he's looking at somebody else at the moment, whether he's dating them or whether he's seeing them. That seems to be what the situation is. And he can see you there sitting on your hands with your broken heart behind you. So he understands that you've suffered your own hurt and that you've gone through some turmoil. He understands that quite well, because you can see how he looks upon you as somebody who's not too concerned about, who's very matter of fact about facing life, but who has had her own heartbreak. So it's going both ways, and maybe that's what attracted him to you, because he sort of looks upon you as somebody who understands him in that way. But it shows that this transformation he's going through, he must be a very he must be kind of a person that thinks a lot about life and a philosopher. That's the impression I'm getting. So he's a bit of a philosophical type, where he will sit there and think about the situation between you for a very long time, and he will sit there for so long and think about it that it gets to the point where he realizes something awakens him and he realizes that he has to be more proactive. But then, and then he views you as an onlooker, like as an observer, but somebody who is walking out of the room. So that to me indicates that he always feels that it's too little too late. So that's another problem. But that is the truth of your relationship at the current time. He has shut you out, and but there is obviously there is hope for you, but I don't want to lead you up the garden path. What I'm saying is that if you feel you're being shut out, you have been. But those love feelings are very, very genuine, and he seems to always renew himself within a relationship or within his emotional life. So what I'm saying is he will keep transforming. So he's going through a stage now where he shut you out, but it will get to the point where he brings you back into the emotional fold, and he starts to look upon you in a more genteel manner again, and start just out of habit will start to love you again. That's what it shows. So all is not lost, but I think it's important to note that he's in a morbid space at the moment, and there isn't a lot you can do about it because it's part of his makeup. Okay? So whenever a person tries to grow a relationship with him, he always has a tendency to... This is deck 2. I have the High Priestess, the Hierophant, and the Moon. What this shows me is that the truth of the situation is that this man that you're interested in is very committed to you, but he can see that you're a bit of a loner. And the reason that he's committed to you, it shows here in these cards, and I know I've said this many, many times, that he looks upon you as being somebody very spiritual, because he himself is also very spiritual. He must have a strong belief in God or something like that. Even if he doesn't show that, that's his core, that's the core of his being. So I can see here that the challenge is that he could be jealous of other men looking at you, because you must be a very desirable person. You must be quite a dreamy person, or somebody who he looks upon as being dreamy. So that to me is somebody that maybe is attractive or very sexy in some way, and he can see other men looking at you, and he could just sneak up on them and clip them behind the ear. That's the kind of impression I'm getting from these cards. So he must be a very strict person, because you can see in this depiction that he could just go up to one of those men that he thinks is looking at you, and he could just flick them over the ear, or bite them on the bottom, something like that. That sounds funny, but that he could just nip at them. I think that's what he wants to do. He could just nip at them. So he must be a fairly disciplined person, because he sees what they're doing, even in admiring you. He sees it as an insult to you. So you must be very, you must have a very you must have an air about you that is very pure, a strict air about you, because he really thinks that these men that are looking at you are doing something quite sinful. So he is a jealous person. But you are the light in his life, and he's just about to take the path to you. It's a long path, but he's willing to take it, and he's going to nip those other men on his way through. He thinks they're being crude to you by admiring you. He doesn't like you looked upon as a sexual object. That's what I'm trying to get across. So the truth of the matter is that you're the light in his life. But it's also, this relationship is in a dream state at the moment. So you are somebody he fantasizes about, but he sticks close to you in his thoughts and in his being. So it's almost as if he sits beside you. That's the kind of vision I have in this scenario. So he stays steadfast in his emotions for you, and they are very committed emotions, extremely committed. But I can see that you're not really looking his way either. You mustn't know how deeply committed he is. You have some impression of his emotions, but you're not looking towards him. I can see that you're a very passionate person, but you cloak your passion a bit. And it shows the jealousy in him. So he is jealous of other men being around you. But also it shows that he looks upon you as somebody who can potentially snap at other men. So he kind of looks upon you as somebody that protects themselves, a person that protects themselves from sexual innuendo. But he's just sitting there watching you and watching every move you make. But it's not it's not a weird thing. He's just fairly committed to you, because you can see he's very strict in himself, within himself. Like he follows a path of spirituality, for one. He's probably very organised in his work, day-to-day work. He might have a little bit of an obsessive compulsive disorder where everything has to be just right or just so, where everything has to be perfected. That's the other impression I'm getting from this card. So I can see he perhaps is left-handed. But he can also see that you are an emotional person, that you put on a positive front, but that you are an emotional, very sensitive person. You could be a person that cries a lot behind the scenes, but that you shine a light on everything. So you're very positive. You're outwardly positive, but these tears don't arise from a place of depression. It's just showing that you have a deep feeling for the world around you, like a lot of empathy. That's what it shows. So he's holding something back with the moon card here. He's obviously holding back his emotions from you. That's very clear. He's sort of fantasizing about this commitment he has to you, because obviously he hasn't expressed himself to you about it. And I can see that you could be reading books just lately. I mean, it may not be something you do on a regular basis, but it just shows that you're here with an open book. But you're not reading it, so I think you have maybe had attempted to read some books just recently, but maybe you didn't like them or something and you put them down. So that's just a little antidote. That's what the cards show. Yeah, I just don't understand. He seems to be facing away from you, facing away from his love, but focusing more on his fantasy for you, fantasy over you. I don't quite understand that aspect because he is very committed to you. So maybe this has been going on for a very long time. When you get yourself into a state where you think about a person so much that you will yourself into a belief, but you don't take proactive steps to make it happen. That's the impression I'm getting. So I don't think he's seeing the real you. He understands a lot about you, almost everything about you, but he's not seeing the real you because he's not engaging with you in a physical sense. He engages with you on an emotional level. That's the impression I'm getting. So I guess the truth of the matter is it's a little bit difficult on his side because he needs to start doing something proactive about his love for you. And the reason that he should be doing that now is because he knows in his heart that he's deeply committed to you emotionally, that he knows a lot about you, that he understands you, and now he's got to put the effort in to ensure that that commitment is realized. Because I can see that you are alone. You are an independent person. So you're not engaged in any relationship, and it's not at the top of your list to be in a love affair, but it's something that you're open to, obviously. But you can go without. That's what these cards are saying. And it's saying that the person that interests you does have a commitment to you on an emotional plane, but he's not doing anything about that at the moment. So I guess the difficulty with that situation is that if he's got a jealous streak and you happen to move out of that emotional state where you're feeling very independent and you find somebody else, it could cause a dilemma, particularly for him, because he has an impression about you which is very strong and committed. So I don't know exactly how that's going to pan out, or whether he's actually thought it through, because he's hiding his emotions. With the moon card here, it says he's hiding his emotions from you. It can be read several different ways, but I can tell by these cards that he has this commitment to you, and he's just fantasizing over you at the moment. So the moon talks about secrets, so I think his secret is that he's deeply committed to you, and you show up in his love as his love, in his love position. So it means that if you're sitting there, and you don't have a third party in the card, that means he's very focused on you. So the truth of the matter is that he's committed to you, hands down, but he's got to move this relationship out of the illusion that it's in. Because I can see that you're just minding your own business, but that you're open to having a love affair with him. But it's not actually your responsibility, it's his to develop this relationship, because he's the one with the stronger feelings. Okay, so that's deck 2. Please like, share, subscribe and comment if